Never before in all our history have these forces been so united against one candidate as they stand today. They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
The needs of working families in the middle class, not just the billionaire class. We know what's going on. We are paying attention.
Good morning, everybody. It's the end of the corporate age and maybe the end of YouTube. Probably not really. But they've been on a 500 internal server error for quite some time. We haven't been able to broadcast out from them. So we decided to try the Facebooks today. Not my favorite place to broadcast, but hey, we'll see how it goes. And I'm looking for a place to see your comments live on here because they changed the interface. So hopefully I'll get to see you guys interacting. But we have a special guest here today. We have Adriel Hampton with us. Adriel is a gonzo. What did you call yourself, Adriel? I'm sorry. You like the word gonzo, but I called yourself something.
Gonzo campaigner.
Campaigner. Thank you, gonzo campaigner.
I mean, I used to be a gonzo journalist, or at least be fans of them, but now I do campaigns.
Well, there you go. And I'm just going to let you hear Adriel. You're never going to see him. No, it's not true. Welcome, everybody who found us on Facebook. I don't know why YouTube isn't working. Give me a minute to get through the basics because it's a little weird looking at the thing here. It's not a normal screen. The cover card today, before we talk to Adriel, is just a quick note. I'm not going to go on a rant about it, okay? I promise I won't. This is just another incident. If you haven't seen, there's protesting happening in St. Louis because this guy Jason Stockley is a murderer, and he got away with it. Because he's a cop. There is absolutely no other reason that he should be free right now. If this had been any other citizen, it would have been a done deal. Actually, if it had been any other citizen, they probably just would have been shot by the cops in the first place. But because this is a cop, he has been getting special treatment. And so this happened right after our show yesterday. I'm not going to rant about it. I'm just going to say every day there is another case where we see a cop get away with murder, and there is no accountability within our police force. There's no accountability within our Justice Department on the police. And if we want to change that, we have to take over the powers that let the police do what they please. And that is what Adriel has been working on with some progressives. We're going to talk about all sorts of stuff, strategy. We're going to talk about what we're doing, trying to build these small businesses that we need to put together, the nonprofits and whatnot, to grow our new engine for the progressive Democratic Party that Bernie is leading. Sorry, Joy. I know you didn't want it to be true, but it really is. It really is. I saw the best comment about the Bernie versus Hillary book. I just want to just cover this. Bernie wrote a book about America. Hillary wrote a book about herself and her butt hurt. That right there encompasses the vast difference between the two candidates. That's basically it. Anyway, Markus, good morning, sir. How you doing from Germany?
Good morning, John, and good morning to Laura. Good morning to Deniz. Good morning, Adriel. And as usual, good morning, America. I hope you're doing great, and it's weekend, and yeah, I hope we have a good show for you on Saturday.
Thank you so much. And of course we have Deniz, and I'm using multiple cameras today that I don't normally use, so we're gonna frame him up here. Deniz, there we go. Hey, look at Deniz. He's looking so cute. How you doing, Deniz?
I'm pretty fine. Günaydın arkadaşlar. Let's start with the show.
There's your Turkish for today, everybody.
Yeah.
One day we'll learn what that, well, we know what that means. We're learning. It's nice to have the international flavor. And Laura Livengood, I'm going to have to switch you on camera too. Dang. Laura Livengood, master of graphics and credits and all sorts of stuff. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah.
I've had a busy little morning. But welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming over and seeing us on Facebook Live. Sorry for those of you who can't get on or won't do Facebook. Sorry, this is not our choice. YouTube is forcing us to do our little trial a little earlier than we expected.
Yeah.
But you can stay in the YouTube chat. I'm monitoring that. I'm monitoring the Facebook chat also. I think my eyes are going to, fall out of my head. But we'll do this. And sorry for the last minute switch up.
There you go. So wait a minute. I'm here. You just sit there, Laura, while I move around these cameras and see if I can't figure this out. There. And all right, now I got it. And now, without further ado, let's bring on Adriel Hampton, who is on camera M2. There we go.
There you go.
Hey, Adriel, how you doing this morning?
Hey, good, John. It's good to be on the show. Thank you.
Thank you. This. I know Laura said we were going to keep this professional, but really didn't start that way.
It was just a suggestion.
It's what happens on the internet.
Hey, like you, John, I check the background of all my shots.
Yeah.
Did you? I just want just a side note on that.
Any illegal activity is not visible.
Got to be removed. Yeah, I used to have a cannabis plant in the shot. I got rid of that too. It's just like, nope, just gonna, between two ferns.
Dress things up. Couldn't get you in a tie, but you got rid of the cannabis plant.
It really tied the room together, though.
There you go. I got to turn this light. I turned the wrong light. I got the wrong lighting on too. It's just ridiculous. All discombobulated this morning. And just to mention that, what was it? One of the Kardashians or some celebrity was busted doing a quick video from home, and behind them were some lines on the counter.
Whoops.
You're supposed to finish those before you do the show.
Right.
Yeah.
Hang on.
Sure
I got to go live.
Wow.
Anyway, so, and hi, everybody. I did find the comments, so I can see you commenting there. Hi, Patricia and Barbara and Jill and Melissa. And I think that's what I see right now. Anyway, Adriel, so tell everybody out there in our audience, what do you do for the Revolution? What are you working on?
What do I do for the Revolution? Well, so a little bit about my background. I was a journalist and a private investigator, although working for a public entity. It was the city attorney in San Francisco. And then in 2009, I ran for Congress myself on a very left-wing platform. I was basically a Democratic Socialist before it was real popular,
Nice.
registered with the Democratic Party to run in a Democratic primary after being an independent and a Green and a Democrat, kind of depending on what was going on in the primaries. So in 2009, ran for Congress, single payer, better minimum wage, better union rights, all of those kinds of things, legalizing cannabis. And I also ran on what we used to call civic tech. And I guess there's still a vibrant civic tech movement, but it's very niche. Like if you think the progressive movement is niche, right? Try getting into some kind of, trying to reform government technology. Not many people can stand that, and it takes many, many years. It's even harder to make change in government bureaucracy than it is in politics, remarkably enough.
Sure.
Or not surprisingly.
It moves even slower, right? I mean, it
moves even slower. Yeah. So I was involved in that civic tech movement for a number of years. And when I ran for Congress, that was part of what I tried to put forth as a platform, is that you can do government much better with better technology. You can do it cheaper. You can use open source. And I became pretty well known in that movement. I started speaking at different conferences and things like that. But when I ran for Congress, I found out that nobody cared about that at all. They really, all they want to talk about is like abortion and, at the time, war. Nobody's talking about war right now, but in 2009 they did want to talk about it.
Yes.
Immigration was a huge one. In 2009, people really felt like immigrants were taking their jobs. You would get just casual racism, just like almost anyone you talk to on the street in some of the district where I was running. And this is in California, but slightly more rural.
Right.
Than San Francisco.
What district was it, Adriel?
It was. It used to be. It was old District 10, and it became vacant when Ellen Tauscher, who was a representative for several terms, quit to go to the State Department. So then I worked for Nation Builder for several years, and the work I was hoping to do at Nation Builder was to help really candidates like myself who kind of didn't know what they were doing, but had a passion for the right issues, and maybe even had, the network to pull something off, but not the skill set or the training. So at Nation Builder, we were able to serve thousands of campaigns. However, pretty early on there, they got a lot of pushback from vendors associated with the DNC and the DCCC and other Democratic kind of organizations for being an upstart that was challenging some of those left vendors. And the company very quickly found more reception working with right-wing organizations. And one of the first big deals was with a statewide group of Republicans, basically giving people who wanted to run for assembly or Senate as a Republican discounted access to the software. And that, I don't know if you can attribute the massive turnover in state houses to that. I think it's much more attributable to what the Koch network has done. But it definitely wasn't serving my goals, which were to empower grassroots progressives, not Republican PACs. And so that Nation Builder was definitely not fulfilling this idea of, I'm going to run for Congress, or I'm going to help start a tech company to help young candidates or green candidates. In 2015, Nation Builder had a big layoff, and I was the highest level employee to lose their job in that. And it was the first time I'd ever not had a job, waiting when I left something. And this time I was like, you know what, I'm 37 years old. I'm going to just start my own company, and I'm going to consult for other tech companies because I'd been in charge of partnerships at Nation Builder. And so for a while, that's what I did. I helped companies with their marketing and strategy and growth and PR and writing press releases and SEO kind of stuff.
Nice.
But gradually, I started working with some campaigns. And just literally in the last few months, we won a campaign in Berkeley, which was the first campaign I was a general consultant for after working with hundreds of campaigns in different ways at Nation Builder. And after that, there's so many people running for Congress who haven't run before, and they feel like they're at a stage in their life where they're not going to run for school board or city council. They don't want to start at the bottom of the ladder. They want to take their life experience and take that to Congress. And that that resonates with me really deeply, because I think that the way that people ladder step up through politics, they run for offices that they don't actually have a lot of belief in, that they don't plan to stay in because they want to go up. And that's just the way the system works. And I think it's unfortunately corrupting, because what it means is the people who are the moneyed interest in politics get closer and closer to you. Your circle gets smaller and smaller. You get more and more elite as you go up that ladder. And I think there's a better way to run congressional campaigns, taking technology from the civic tech work that I've done, and also looking at what the Bernie Sanders network created, which is, I think, a lasting grassroots base that's more vibrant and more excited and larger in number than any I've seen in my life following presidential cycles. Nice.
That's awesome.
That was a lot.
That was. I mean, thank you. It's a great background. It lets us know, lets us know about who you are and what you've done and your experience. And I just want to say thank you for bringing your talents to the progressive movement, because I don't really know what we have in that regard. That campaign strategy and who's working for it. What it seems to me is that a lot of the candidates that we've had on the show don't have really much of help. They've got a few people around them, friends that are offering them help. They don't have campaign managers. They don't have strategists. They don't have anybody doing that stuff. They've got a few $1,000s and they're, raising kids and trying to do this. And we've got those people kind of in a bracket separated from people with gobs of money. And maybe there's some scattered in between. But it seems like we need to build that engine for the progressive movement like it's been built for the establishment candidates, right?
I absolutely agree. I mean, there's an interesting thing with the DCCC, which is the organization that runs campaigns or kind of embeds itself in campaigns for people running for Congress for the Democratic Party
that have been anointed. Clarify.
They have been anointed. Yeah, they have to be anointed by the party, and then they come in. And one of the things for those campaigns that are kind of a friends and family affair, they can come in and push aside those local advisors too. And that can be a mixed bag, because the DCCC hasn't been doing that great, and the DNC doesn't have that much money or trust right now. And I think we need a way to basically say to the Democratic Party that if people are going to run as Democrats, they're going to run on the issues, they're going to run the best campaigns they can, and then when the DCCC, if they want to come in, because hopefully some of our candidates, real true progressives, are going to end up running against Republicans in districts where you know, a couple $100,000 would really help. Then the DCCC needs to come in and work with the candidates on their terms and true to the district, not bring. I mean, I don't think there's a single person in the country that thinks it's a great idea to bring DC kind of culture and embed that into these local districts. And you're absolutely right about the campaigns that we like, right? The you know, we could name off half a dozen or more. I worked for Stephen Jaffe for 3 months to launch his campaign, and we have someone embedded with his campaign now, helping with volunteers. But even a campaign like a Stephen Jaffe is still really running on this very grassroots budget. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that we're looking at is what can you do as a political firm. It's interesting because somebody said to me who's working with me right now, like, oh, everyone looks at political consultants and they say it's the consultant class coming in to tell us what to do. What I want to do is build a firm that is just, you know, I've been through that. I lost a congressional race horribly, right? I got 347 votes. Now, my excuse is that it was a special election where it was one ballot with 12 names on it. So to get to me, they had to skip the lieutenant governor of the state, they had to skip the state senator, they had to skip the local assemblywoman, and we were able to talk about issues like legalizing marijuana, like getting out of Iraq and Afghanistan, that would not have been on the table if a grassroots progressive had not run. I mean, there's just issues that if you're a well-funded candidate, you avoid talking about. And if you're a progressive, you talk about them because if, you know, even if like with Stephen, even press attacking him or making fun of him is exposing all these people who have no idea who the progressives are because the mainstream media doesn't like to cover them. I mean, that's one thing you see. You see a media blackout. So with my firm, which is now like 8 people and a couple of partner companies and a couple more kind of small subcontractors, we're trying to create an infrastructure for a campaign where you can say, okay, I have $5,000. Let's make sure I have $5,000 sustainably every month so that I can grow this campaign. And hopefully next year, when more attention is on it, that'll become $10,000. $10,000 is enough to pay a consultant, buy your literature, pay for a full-time campaign manager. And in some areas, it's even enough to add like a volunteer coordinator. And one of the things we're doing as well is trying to help these campaigns understand that you're building a professional organization. It's very much like it's a startup. It's not a technology startup. It's a political startup. Yeah. And it has to grow very, very quickly. It has to be very efficient with its budgeting and its growth planning. It has to pick the right people. If the people it picks aren't right, it has to switch them out very quickly. And so we're trying to provide some infrastructure that we can kind of come in and lay under. And I'm making all kinds of hand gestures that are off camera, but kind of lay under the campaign.
There you go.
Thank you. Yeah. And then they can either continue working with us and we'll help, you know, for example, with hiring staff. And there's some things you can do remotely. For example, we're using, there was an article I wrote in Campaign and Elections magazine last week where I mentioned Uphill Media and the work that you're doing. I also mentioned several other networks. What these candidates really need is to not do it alone, not think that they have to create everything from scratch. There's incredible materials from Wellstone. If you go to wellstone.org, there's a tools section. It tells you how to calculate your win number. And a lot of the products that we sell are simply derived from all this information that's out there that we've collected. And it's not, one of my goals is I didn't set out to be a political consultant. I would rather be in Congress or be campaigning myself or be writing books or something like that. But there is an urgent need, as we all know, and that's why we put our time and energy into things that, you know, these are definitely not easy ways to make money, but they're incredibly meaningful. And if we can build models where you can do meaningful work that has a high impact, for example, if we could get 10 true progressives into Congress to join people like Barbara Lee, you know, like that would have the biggest, craziest impact. And it's not even that hard. It's not even that many races.
Right. No. So just hang on for a second. I want to stop you because you're covering a lot of stuff, and I want to back up. First, Laura Live and Good, is there anybody out in the audience with any questions for Adriel right now? I don't even know if you're able to monitor that like normal.
Yeah, not yet. Everybody hasn't quite finished complaining about us being on Facebook quite yet.
See, we're talking
really
about deep stuff. They're talking about Facebook.
I know. That's like, okay. We get it, guys. No, somebody just said maybe for people who just have dropped in, who Adriel is, which I'm saying he's behind the scenes in a lot of progressive campaigns and has a platform.
Yeah, I mean, I can talk a little bit about who we're working with. So I'm a political consultant, but I would say that really that's not my prime identity. My prime identity is strategy and writing and things like that, campaigning. I really enjoy the actual work of campaigning, right, where you're trying to get donations or get the votes or get an email to be opened by more people than opened the last one. You know, it's kind of lame things that you have to do when you are campaigning. So my firm works with Stephen Jaffe. It works with Jesse Spey right now. We're working with Ruben Major, who's running for Secretary of State in California. Jesse Spey is running for Nevada State Senate, or excuse me, U.S. Senate.
Are you still working with Gail?
I'm working with Gail. Mm-hmm.
He's our guest on Monday.
Yeah, so Gail is coming up on Monday. Gail is a really great candidate for lieutenant governor. It's like unanimous that people across the state think she's the best candidate. Now, best candidate and winning candidate are different things because the money is flowing through Ed Hernandez, who's a career politician, who's people like to become lieutenant governor at the end of when they term out, right? Gail wants to really do something with it, and she'll tell you about that next week, but she wants to use it to organize. And that's, it's funny because, John, you said, please do run. If I were going to run, lieutenant governor is an extremely interesting position because it's low profile, which means you can spend less money to win. Right. But it has a tremendous bully pulpit. If you're lieutenant governor of California, you can travel all around the world talking about whatever you want to talk about. Yep. You don't even have a real portfolio. There's a couple of like commissions that you sit on.
You don't really have a job. What you're like? It's like the first lady does more. Is that No
job, no staff. Like you have, I think you get 5 staff, but a member of Congress gets 20, and there's 53 congressional districts in California. So that's why the lieutenant governor of the state ran for this open seat when I ran in 2009. He was like, I don't want to be a lieutenant governor anymore. I want to be in Congress where at least like Fox News actually covers me.
God. For ratings, I want to.
He was a left winger, but he was, he definitely was like, the thing is Congress is so weird that you get in there and the right wingers will cover you as a token left winger because there's so few voices that will, challenge.
Interesting.
Just for the nice. Well, I mean, yeah, whatever works for ratings. I want to back up a little bit and talk about the value of a consultant and the value of for all of these candidates. All right, they're not all tech geniuses. They're one person. They have to bring on other people and rely on other people to get this shit done. And from candidates that we've had on We the People, not just in 2017 but in 2016. I mean, we were running this show from the beginning. One of the biggest challenges that I've seen is understanding and commanding the tech they need to be able to get out and compete, because they don't have CNN as a platform. They have YouTube or Facebook or Twitter, right? And so the reason I'm going there is to ask you, when you see and I'm working on a video for this, we talked about, what the 101s of what you need to do to be camera ready. But, in media today for a progressive campaign, how important is it?
How important is media, or how important is technology?
Both, because you have to you have to command the technology to be able to produce media. You
have to be able to command the technology to raise money as well. So yes. So the interesting thing that we're trying to do, and this is, I guess, my biggest kind of sales pitch when I talk to candidates, is we're trying to provide a general consulting model that is also digital and technology first. Whereas most of your general consulting firms are rooted in mail and television, and mail and television are very difficult to prove that they actually move the needle. They definitely help with name recognition, but do they switch votes? Whereas, for example, door knocking is proven to switch votes. It's like the most effective way to switch votes, and that's the premise behind like Knock Every Door, which came out of the Bernie movement and is a Becky Bond project with other folks. But I believe Knock Every Door was very involved in the Krasny race. They know from reading the same studies I've seen, that if you knock on the door, someone is much more likely to remember and vote for your candidate. They actually change their mind. They also will do it for phone calls, but mail-in TV, not so much. Mail-in TV also have this weird thing, and this is any other consultants watching the show, which there probably are none, will get mad here, but they take money based on a percentage of spend, like lawyers bill hourly, consultants bill on 15% of the TV budget. And it's a very absurd way to bill, because especially on an item that's not proven to move the dial. Like, I would love to have a bonus for every door we knock, right, at the end of a campaign. Maybe it's a penny, right? And we knock 700,000 doors, and all of a sudden I have like an extra, 70 grand. And this is an interesting thing about consulting is there's always a fight over how to spend the money, because there's never enough money. What we're saying is, if you come in with technology, so if you're a progressive campaign, you're going to be outspent like 10 to 1. It's just like kind of a given already. But yes, there's one thing you have to prepare for, which is you have to raise the one, right? So if they raise, $2 million, you have to raise 200,000, or you're not going to compete. But my job is to try to leverage, and we haven't, done this in a huge way yet, although we did a little bit in Berkeley with our last race, but doing it at a congressional scale, we have to prove this. The idea is that you take a small budget, and for congressional race, a small budget would be like 500,000. We think that even with 200,000, we can take that money and leverage volunteers if the campaign and the candidate are compelling enough. But like Stephen Jaffe in the first 3 months had like 240 volunteer signups, and about 100 of those active, right? Wow, so that's like nice. a real good start. And if you end up with several hundred activists across the country who use the phone, and some of them in the district, maybe 50 to 200, you can take that $200,000 and leverage it. And the way you do that, on the media side, you're using things like Twitter. And we made Stephen Jaffe was a famous left Twitter person within really a month. And within 2 months, he was like, pretty legitimately solid in there. And you can also, and that was free, right? It took time and energy, but it didn't take media money. He was on your show. He was on Anoa's show. He was on the Progressive Army show. He was on a show with the Humanist Report. And many of these media networks are extremely exciting, because even if they have an audience of 10 to 20,000, you get on 10 of them, and you've hopefully reached 100,000, an audience of 100,000. Right?
That's being nice. I mean, the Humanist Report gets about 5K a show. We get, 400 if we're cranking, unless it's a Bernie broadcast. But then but you move up into those other ranks. I mean, and just to be honest, I mean, Stephen Jaffe's been on at least twice, right? And what he learned over that time was to get better light, to have a better connection, right?
And so then when he goes on, the Young Turks, he's not going to be all blurry and choppy,
right? And that's it. Like that's why. I mean, really, that's what our group does with the show. I don't expect there's never going to be a lot of people watching the show. My show is designed to allow, candidates to ride their bike for the first time and crash.
Beard or no beard?
What?
Beard or no? So I'm asking the audience, beard or no beard for my next. Do I go full Lex Luthor?
I like the beard.
Keep the beard, man.
So, John, are you interested in hearing about a couple of interesting technologies that people can check out on their own?
Sure. Just before we get into that, Laura, I haven't got any questions from the audience?
Deniz is dropping a couple questions. This isn't really a candidate interview, but people were curious about your views on audited elections, and have you ever been a Green Party candidate?
Yeah, I've never been a Green Party. I've never run for office as a Green, but I've been registered as a Green, and I voted for Jill Stein in 2012. I really don't like drone warfare. It's actually a big issue for me. And I think the Democrats have been just atrocious on it. And I don't think I would have voted. I try not to vote. Actually, I voted for Jill Stein in 2016 as well, because I was in California. So I voted for Jill twice.
Me too.
Actually, I forgot that I did that. And it's interesting. It's interesting to me that people act like you can't vote for whoever you want, especially in places where it doesn't matter at all. Like California, even the votes for Bernie didn't matter, unfortunately, because the superdelegate race was called on the evening of the primary in California, which was an unconscionable act, I think, by
Yeah.
the Associated Press.
Yes.
Both John and I voted for Jill.
Yeah.
So
in Oregon, we voted for Jill.
And the other question was, so there was, have I been a green candidate? And what was the first one? I'm sorry, Laura.
Verifiable audited elections.
Yeah, I'm working with someone who's running for Secretary of State, so I'm going to be learning a lot more about this issue because
we're looking forward to having him on the show. So
he's really smart, and he's been, it's an interesting thing because Ruben Major was running for state Senate, and he changed his mind basically because it's so funny, and this is why I like citizen progressives is he thought, oh, this is kind of an easy race. It'd be nice to just win this race. And they thought, no, what I really care about is elections reform, and no one is running on elections reform against the current Secretary of State, who's been
exactly
kind of a rubber stamp for the vendors and kind of like just a showboater who doesn't accomplish much.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not biased in this race at all. But then Ruben dropped out of one race to get into another where it needed a progressive voice. And so I'm not an expert on voter verified audit trails, but I think they sound like a good idea. I think that we should be using open source systems where we can see how the code works, and they can be more accountable to the public. And then I do think we need audits and verified ballots, because the thing that always blows my mind is how cheap it is to buy politicians through lobbying, right? It's the donations are actually not that big. When you say $120,000 to someone's race, most of these bigger races cost millions of dollars to win. And it's over the lifetime often, right? So it's like in the last 10 years, this person got $120,000 and now they're a shill for the pharma industry. And it's like, that's so little money compared to how much money they give away, how much money we as citizens overspend when lobbyists get their way. And that just, it goes back to we have to be better at winning elections, and we have to spend the money to protect them. Because if we don't spend the money to protect our elections and we put people in who then go and burn us to the tune of billions of dollars in wasted spending on our own healthcare, that's not good.
Well, then you're getting to the core of the big problem, which is we have to replace all the corrupt people in order to change the system to make it actually function, in terms of costs overall and where our money goes. It wouldn't be that hard to use blockchain and create a voting system that is both secure and functions for the 21st century. I know there's a lot of cries for paper ballots, and the other day I was looking at the picture of the White House with Trump in there with a phone from the 80s. There's no computers. There's no.
You don't want elections like that.
Yeah, well, I'm looking at that and I'm going, our White House should look like the command deck of the USS Enterprise, right? Fucking screens and gear and technology all over the place. It shouldn't look like a goddamn museum.
Well, you gotta get. It's not an age issue, but we have to get technology users in there, and that's an interesting thing I've learned on campaigns. It's you can't just put I consider my most valuable contribution to the Stephen Jaffe campaign to be the style I built for him on Twitter.
Yes.
Not something else I did. And so I never throw an intern on social media or on working with progressive media. I want the best people in my organization working with the people who are going to be advocates, who are going to get your voice out there. And social media is where most people now learn about candidates, the ones that the mainstream media won't cover. Right. And if you can get that base that can then go out and help, preach the gospel. So many people were trained on dialers, and I love it that one thing I recently learned that I hadn't known is that Justice Democrats has a dialer. So for its candidates, you can sign up, and I guess I've seen the emails and just didn't quite realize what was going on. You can sign up, make calls for your favorite candidate or candidates. Right from the Justice Democrats website. And that's those kind of tools and building out the live streaming capacity through uphill media. Those are all going to be huge for these candidates.
Thanks for the plug. Appreciate that. Yeah. Well, yeah. And just to talk about that, Justice Democrats has that tool, right? And Our Revolution has the big phone banking tool. That's their, thank you for doing that. The mic there. Here, I'll take you off cam.
Can I ask him a question?
Dennis, you have a question? Hang on, let me see if I can put you on camera here. What's up, Dennis?
Yeah. How would your work change if your elections would be financed publicly, like they do here in Germany?
Oh, interesting question.
That's a phenomenal question. And this is what's really hard, is that a lot of people who want publicly financed elections want us to pretend we already have them. And because we don't, we can't do that, right? So you have to raise money. If you don't raise money, you're toasted. But if, for example, in Arizona, I'm giving some informal advice to a candidate who's running for the state house in Arizona. They have public financing. You have to raise $205 contributions, and then you have to stay within campaign finance limits. And it was interesting because I was looking at the campaign finance limits, and there was about $40,000 for the entire election. And that's about what we spent on this Berkeley election, which was a similar number of people. And so you can run these races for not a lot of money, very effectively, very efficiently, and all you have to do is get 200 people to give you $5. So I think if we had wide-scale public financing, I wouldn't want, having been a congressional campaign candidate myself, I wouldn't want to see people automatically get free money. What I want to see is matching or threshold. So you get, if you get for Congress, you would probably need to get like, say, 400 people to give you $10. And then after that, you get like $40,000. And then if you get more people to give you money, you get more and more. And I don't know how the German system works exactly, but how it would change my work is it would be much, 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 much easier to run a professional campaign and get paid, because you'd have very reliable metrics that allow you to do it with regular citizens,
right,
rather than trying to find rich people.
And it sounds like I mean, you would have standardization within the industry. You guys would, there would be regular rates.
The prices would be, right, exactly. The pricing would be more transparent because everyone would be working with similar budgets.
Yeah.
And there'd be probably some people who are like, I don't do publicly financed candidates, I only do the rate. But I think that we do need to also just ban the use, ban non-publicly financed elections. I mean, if we can do that constitutionally,
right, then
that's what we need to do. It can't be publicly financed going up against rich people, because that's what we have now in
yes,
a number of cities. Someone will spend $3 million, the publicly financed candidate will have 700,000, but they can't compete. So we need to say, no, you can't spend $3 million on your race. You can only spend 700. If you don't want public money, that's great. If you want to make that stance, but you can't. The rules have to be the same.
Well, that's what we're doing right now. We actually have enough people to raise that kind of money. It's a question of getting enough people around a particular candidate to do that critical mass. And, you were talking about sums of money. It's like most of the progressive candidates that are running, except for a very few that have managed to mass some mainstream attention, right, or have done like Iron Stash. But Iron Stash is a little bit more of a riding the line between true progressive and
when he was
whatever.
Picked, right? Was like very clearly, had all the interest lined up before he jumped in.
Right. I mean, yeah, he had a lot
you
of
can
ducks
see,
in a row.
it's probably half the endorsements he's getting right now are promised to get him to run. Right?
Well, because he's like you, he's competed in previous races, right?
Right.
And the spin on that was great. Here's a guy who's lost a bunch of times. Here's a guy who's got experience and will probably kick some ass this time. Let's, put it in a different frame of mind, right? So, but the sums of money, I mean, I think you were the one who gave me this term, and when I look at everybody, I see it. 50K or less seems to be what most of our people are commanding in terms of some kind of a pocketbook.
There's a good statistic on that, and I think when I talked to you about it before, I actually was wrong. It's 5,000. So there was, as of the second quarter, June 30th, 209 Democratic challengers, so non-incumbents, had raised 5,000 or more. And that was up, I believe, 4x from the previous cycle or the previous high. So it's a lot of people, but it's only $5,000. Right. They're running for Congress on $5,000. And yes, there's still like a year and a half to go from June 30th to get through to November. But you need like $5,000 a month to be running a serious campaign. And that's not easy to raise.
No.
So one project we're working on is an ebook. And I'll let you know when it comes out, but probably in the next 3 or 4 weeks, I hope. And it's going to be on fundraising, and it's going to be something that any candidate can afford, and it'll have templates and guides. Because one of the things I've seen is that when you contact your friends and family, because people just don't, they think that, especially when they hear about, there's all these progressives, right? There's, Uphill Media is going to help me, and Support Fellow Progressives is going to help me, and Justice Democrats is going to help me. Well, the first people you need to help from are your friends and family, and you need to get them to give you a little bit of money. You need to email them. And we want to give people a tool that helps them do that, because we'll even sign on with experienced campaigns and see that they have no idea that they're supposed to do this. They haven't thought about like, oh, I have a Gmail or a LinkedIn with all these professional connections. And if you're going to run for office and ask people to vote for you, you've got to be willing to ask your friends and family first, right? And I see people raise a few $1,000s in the first few weeks doing that. And so that can give you kind of the money to get out there and see, you know, can I pull this off? Can I build a movement that can sustain a $5,000 a month budget so I can, you know, have a real shot at this?
That sounds like what Jeff Merkley is doing in Iowa, right? Testing the waters, right? Should I even run? Is it worth it? Because a lot of people, it seems like they just jumped in and then went, oh shit, right? And I you know, commend their bravado, but you know, it's like, let's take some time.
Well, it's better. Yeah. You know, I think it's fine to say I'm going to run for office and then drop out 3 months later. I do think that's okay, because people usually don't know what they're in for.
Right.
I think that I try, when the first conversation I have with a candidate is usually trying to get them to drop out, and some of them do and some of them don't. Or not announce, right? If they haven't announced, you know, I'm saying, like, do you really want to do this? You know, here's some numbers. Because you can calculate the numbers. Like, if you're doing a field campaign and you need to reach 200,000 people, you need like hundreds of volunteers. And then to manage them, you need like half a dozen staff members. And if you can't get your head around those kind of numbers and how you're going to achieve them, you probably shouldn't be running. I mean, I want everyone to run in every district, but.
Yeah. So. What's
I have a question. I got a question.
What's up, Laura
Lively? Do you have any inside scoop on any major progressive unity events with Bernie leading? You know, maybe something like Live Aid. Someone is suggesting.
I wish. I don't have any. I don't know any
sounds like awesome
information on that. You know, I have to. This will be unpopular with maybe some people who do watch the show, but I think one of the things that's a little bit challenging is, like, there are these post-Bernie organizations that are more formal, right? Like, to some extent, Brand New Congress and Justice Democrats, because it has Zach Exley involved. There's Knock Every Door. There's Our Revolution, which is very tight with the National Nurses United, which was one of the biggest forces behind both the Bernie election and the People for Bernie and the People's Summit. I hope that there are more unity type events, and I hope that these groups don't kind of just do their own thing independently, right? Because it's hard to have like the cooperation and transparency that is needed for a movement that doesn't have a single figurehead. Because now that Bernie's not on the ballot in 2018, he's got Medicare for all, he's pulling people together, but people are going to have to vote en masse in dozens of districts where progressives can win, right? And that's a very different. I think it's something we haven't necessarily figured out, and I hope that we will. And maybe events are part of that.
That's what midterms are for, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I think that we learn in midterms how much effort we need to put into it, and if we get it, if we win, we're going to win in some places, we're going to lose in some places. We're already winning. We just flipped a couple seats in a couple places. The mainstream media is not going to talk about it.
Right.
Matter of fact, they're having fun. I've got a couple articles about it. One of them's a very pro-Bernie media, basically saying he is the leader of the Democratic Party at this point, right? Or at least the Bernie party, the Bernie version of it, right?
Right.
And
it's
another one.
It's never been so big. I mean, I don't know what it's like for you two, but when I go, because I've been active in the Democratic Party since I ran in 2009, and I've been going to the party conventions in California. They have 2 events a year. One of them's large, and one of them's just their executive board. And I often speak about technology for Democratic politics. And this last meeting I was at in Anaheim a month or so ago, dramatic difference in how many people there were open progressives. You know, it was before, it was kind of like there were the folks sitting at the like anti-war booth, and then there were people who maybe were progressive and kind of hiding. There was me who was like trying not to offend anyone and get kicked out. And now they're like all these Bernie delegates. There are all these new faces. There are a lot of people who I think were kind of almost in hiding, now are part of the they're not party insiders, they're party activists instead of just being outside agitators. So it's really interesting to watch. And, you know, I hope it coalesces in to saying that, look, if your main thing is using the Democratic Party to get corporate money and have corporate parties, fuck you.
Right.
You know, and that's hard because that's true. That's why a lot of people are involved in party politics, is because they get to look big, they get to host parties or get invited to parties. There's a lot of money exchanging hands from a lot of interests that don't represent our values.
I see that at the local level with people who are supposed to be doing shit for the county Democratic Party. They're really more interested in posting shit to Facebook and saying, "Oh, look, we went to the gala dinner." And like, what have you actually done for the county in terms of democracy, or was it just so you could look? And yeah, I mean, I see that all the time. It really bothers me. I just want to get your statement on this. This is the narrative that's being spun in other directions.
Where is that? Oh, it's Carly Marinucci. I love it.
Here.
So, oh my God, that's terrible. So I'm working on, there's two things I should shout out. One is everyone should check out the Support Fellow Progressives hashtag.
Yes.
Because I'm trying to show people that you can actually raise money in like really small donations online. But I need people to go there and like say, okay, I'll give $20 to 20 candidates. So those 20 candidates see that there's 20 people who are willing to give them, you know,
so that ACT Link Blue is basically split up to divide those funds, whatever somebody puts in, between all of those people, right?
Right. So I basically put everyone I could find who has an ACT Blue page who's participating actively in this Support Fellow Progressives, which is just saying we all agree on these issues. We are for single payer. Some of them are primarying Democrats. Some of them are really running against Republicans, but they have progressive values, right?
Right.
So this Kamala Harris thing is hilarious because Carla Marinucci is, I believe she was with the Chronicle, so she's covered Kamala for a long time. Is that a Politico article?
It is. I'm just like, and are you trying to spin the narrative here? She's darling
absolutely.
of progressives.
No, it's hilarious. So I actually covered Kamala Harris's first political race, which was against the incumbent DA in San Francisco. And I'm also very biased there because I'm working on trying to set up an anti-Feinstein PAC to try to get an actual an actual progressive elected against her.
Wonderful. I'll donate to that
PAC. She's not a darling of progressives. She's a darling of liberal Democrats, right? She's a very good fundraiser. She's very good at the galas. She's also much, much more progressive than Feinstein. So to see her coming out and supporting Feinstein, not surprising at all.
No.
Because the only thing that's going to get rid of Feinstein is grassroots pressure. The same way with Nancy Pelosi. Like, these are folks who will cling on to their power. And part of my pitch is let's send someone to the Senate from California who's as progressive or more than Harris. Because if you looked at a scale, you know, Feinstein actually really jeopardized Harris's early political career in San Francisco by advocating for the death penalty for someone who shot a cop when Harris had run on no death penalty. And so immediately after she got elected, a cop was shot. Feinstein went to the funeral and at the funeral said, I can't, you know, I think this is a death penalty case. And it's just not so this is a very weird angle for San Francisco, for California, to say that Harris is a darling of progressives. She's pissed off more progressives nationally than she has locally. Interestingly enough.
She didn't show any inkling of progressiveness until she all of a sudden decided she was going to sign on to Bernie's single payer bill.
Well, her and Ro Khanna, I mean, I never knew Ro Khanna was a progressive until he signed on to the Justice Democrats.
Right.
But that's good. I'll take it.
Right.
When I see powerful people coming over and saying, I'm progressive, I'm going to support your bills. As long as they support the fucking bills. You can't say you're progressive and not actually sign on to the progressive legislation.
Well, you can, but now that we're awake, we're going to kick their ass if they do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, IPM tweets will get you.
Right.
Yeah.
And we can't. That's the other thing. That's the other thing about social media is it can make or destroy a campaign.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, Kamala, I mean, that was one of the biggest things I've ever seen where everyone was attacking her for not being progressive when she started floating the trial balloons for 2020.
Right.
Like, you know, you're talking, you can go to Iowa or you can hire Hillary's fundraisers, right? You know, there's all these signals. Right. And she did not get a good reception to the signal, but she has been getting a lot of good reception to Medicare for All. So I think that you have to blame and reward politicians based on what they do, and they do react. And that's what we want out of a democracy, I think.
That's it right there. That's how democracy works. We get mad. We tell politicians, no, bad politician. do this, and then they do this, and then they keep their jobs, and they go, oh, positive reinforcement. Thank you so much.
Right. And I think, you know what, who wouldn't, I mean, if you are a politician, because politicians, and I know, again, I was one, right? There's a lot of ego driving that. Anyone who's willing to go out and month after month, you know, talk to people and try to convince them, and you would much rather have a Bernie crowd than a big fancy fundraiser if you're a populist politician, which most people, because of the ego factor, are like, they really would love to have crowds. And so if we can give them crowds and say, only if you don't take the money, you know, only if you don't take this dirty PG&E money or this sports team money, the NFL money, you know, like the NFL is fucking a racist institution that is blacklisting, you know, a black activist. And yet, you know, plenty of politicians will take all the money they can and say they're great liberals from NFL owners.
Right. Or insurance companies. That's when you were talking about money donated from companies in the small amounts. I looked at Feinstein's record of where she gets money. All right. And it's just like 10 grand donations from every single PAC that was created for every single variant of a health industry, something you can ever imagine. The PAC for surgeons, the PAC for nurses, the PAC for brain people, the PAC for livers, the PAC for, and it was just like every one of them, 10 grand, 10 grand, 10 grand. You know?
I thought that was Pelosi.
Was it Pelosi?
Too?
To me,
it was
I don't
definitely Pelosi.
I'll be honest. I don't see a difference between the two. There are a couple old ladies that need to get the hell out of there. And it's not that they're old in age. They're old in thinking. They just sit there and they like their jobs.
So I got some real blowback when I was announcing to some friends that I was doing this anti-Feinstein thing. And one of them was like, you know, and this is someone I worked with, and, you know, I consider a friend, although our politics are growing so apart that I don't know if it will last. But he says, how, you know, you people are all trying to build machines too. And I'm like, yeah, well, ours like have names and people attached to them, and they have like hopefully like public lists of who's involved. Whereas and we're trying to build machines based on issues, not based on getting our friends elected at any cost.
Right.
Which I won't elect my friends if they're wrong on the issues. I won't work for them if they're wrong on the issues, even if they have money. And if you have to think about someone like Feinstein, who literally has a 6-year term coming up. She's the oldest member of the U.S. Senate, and it's very, very unlikely she will finish much, if even half of a new 6-year term. Because why would you do that to yourself? So the problem is her candidate for governor, Gavin Newsom, will probably win the governorship. She will be able to retire, and the California Constitution allows you to appoint a new senator from California for the full term with no special election. So that's just like giving away a 6-year Senate seat. We have to contest that, and that's why I think it's a big deal in California. And that's why Harris is propping up Feinstein, because she needs it, because we're going to take her out.
That's real House of Cards stuff.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, indeed.
It's like, really. And I'll just say this.
San Francisco does this all the time. I used to be a reporter here, and when I was a reporter, I'd watch, and it would usually be like 3 deep. So they would like vacate a supervisor office by giving someone a job. Then they would put the treasurer in there, and then they'd have a special election for the treasurer's office. So you could give like 3 people really nice payoffs for being your political ally. That's what I call a political machine. A political machine is not an organization that gets you elected. It's, well, when I say it negatively, I want machines that get people elected. I'm a technology guy. But I don't want situations where in a back room you're deciding who the presidential nominee is.
Right.
Where in a back room you're deciding who the next senator of California is without an election, because that's going on. You know, it's like you want it to be a conspiracy theory, but I've seen it happen over and over.
Well, you know, what do you think about Feinstein's movability or Pelosi's movability? Because Scott Galindez tells me all the time that they're not as bad as we think they are, and that they're movable like Roe and Kamala.
I think they're actually just as bad, and the only thing is that they're weaker than you think they are. Like everyone acts like they're scary, and they're gonna like. There are literally people who are like, "Well, I can't endorse Stephen Jaffe because then Feinstein will mess with my race." Excuse me, not Feinstein, Pelosi. Pelosi will mess with my race. Like, if you actually tapped into the 240 volunteers that Stephen Jaffe has, you would do a lot better than worrying about what Pelosi thinks about your podunk race, right?
Right.
But the that the air of invincibility and the amount of money they have, is when they have millions of dollars in their war chest. I don't think they're movable at all. I don't think they're going to be coming around for Medicare for all. I think they're going to stick to their guns because that is how they're trying to rebuild the party. They're trying to continue to rebuild the party post Bernie Hillary with the same interest that they built it with before.
Right. And it's not gonna happen.
I agree.
All right. Well, you got any questions? Deniz, what? Sorry?
Can I add some outside perspective on the whole thing? I am, as a German, I following American politics for years, and I have a little fear that we have something like dynasties, political dynasties, with huge amount of money on the one hand and the politician on the other hand. For example, Mrs. Feinstein, her husband is, he works in the defense sector and is fueling her with money for all her campaigns and so on. This is one example. This is what I get the feeling about out of the political situation. So can you don't press them on this? Is this something that voters get, or what is it?
It's very important. With Pelosi, everyone in San Francisco and in Democratic Party circles in California expects that her daughter, Christine, will run for her seat when she finally decides to give it up, right? And it's very likely that she could do that midterm if she's reelected in 2018, especially if she's not elected leader by the Democrats, or reelected as leader of the party. So the interesting thing there becomes, one, you could have a special election. That's another way they do this. So instead of having a year and a half of a good contest, you have a special election. It's only several weeks, and all of a sudden it's very easy for the Pelosi daughter to replace the Pelosi incumbent. And this is, if that happens, this would be a 3-generation dynasty because Nancy Pelosi's father was a mayor, and Feinstein's daughter is a judge. So you very clearly do absolutely have political dynasties where people put their family into important positions. They support their family to succeed them. They have so much money that's prohibitive for anyone else to get involved. But I think the most important thing we should do is, just like we need to contest every election in November so that the Republicans have to spread themselves thin and the Koch brothers network has to spread itself thin. And the Koch brothers network at any given time has like 600 employees working on U.S. politics, which is, insane. It's larger than the parties. The parties, even at their presidential peaks, don't get much bigger than that. So we also have to progress to contest every primary we can so that the corporate Democrats have to spread thin and they don't know what's going to happen. Like every race that I can help make competitive is actually making it easier for my other campaigns because the concentrated forces of the DC elite consultants who only work for moderates who are going to not pass Medicare for all has to pay attention. They have to pay attention to more races. And we can do that with Twitter. We can do that with YouTube. When I ran in 2009, the front runner in the race used to ask his staff, how are we doing on Twitter? Is Adriel does he still have more followers? Like, what's going on? And I'm just this, 31-year-old investigator in the city attorney's office with like no institutional support. And he's worried about my Twitter, right? So let's make everybody in the whole country worried about every progressive's Twitter in every district.
Good question, Deniz.
And let me say this little sentence. If I would run in America, I would gladly be very happy to have your support for the whole campaign. I think when I have your support, I think I will really risk asses.
We need to start the Purple German Party.
Deniz running Germany.
Yeah, I can advise German elections. I can do that.
Yeah.
Do you speak German, Adriel?
There's plenty of Bernie people who are like in Europe or Australia now.
That's true. That's true. That's true. You guys have a good democracy, Deniz. It's better than ours.
Yes, better than yours. Yes. Okay.
Your democracy is better than ours, but that's only because we had to annihilate you to start it over. And then you did a better job with it. We all know the truth there. There's an interesting story. Adriel, thank you for coming on and talking so long. It's 11:42. We're going to move into some closing stuff and get out of here at noon because we have this thing coming up with the politicalrevolution.com on Reddit. Oh, that's Deniz. Let's get Deniz out of there.
Hold on.
Yeah, Markus, what's up?
I just would like to mention this. Adriel, please come back. It is so entertaining and so interesting to listen to what you got to say. And we would like to have you back. And
thank you. I appreciate it. Well, I really appreciate the work you do, and I want to support it in any way I can. And we're always excited when our candidates get to come talk to you and learn a little bit about the media.
Absolutely.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Thank
you for that, Markus.
Thank you so much.
We are doing more with Adriel Hampton and this exciting stuff we're talking about here. The Reddit AMA thing mixed with the engagement broadcast is going to be a great enhancement on the conversation, and that's what I'm looking forward to. So this is going to be a dry run with Sam Ronan today. After this,
if YouTube cooperates.
If YouTube cooperates, yeah, we'll have to see what's going on with that. So what? If you know, I'm going to just ask you this: if you could offer any piece of advice to a candidate that might be watching this show, what would it be?
I think that you just have to look at the mechanics of actually winning your race, and that every candidate should run to win. So if you can run to win without a lot of resources, if you start from the end, which is how many votes do you need to win, and the wellstone.org will give you tools to calculate that.
Nice.
And then you need to work back to how many do you need to win the primary, and how many do you need to get on the ballot? Because if you can't get enough signatures to get on the ballot, you're probably not going to win later on. Once you've looked at those numbers, you have to also look at the willingness to make phone calls, to talk to people and ask them for money. It could be for $50. You know, most of your family members should be able to give you $50, but you'll have to have hundreds of those conversations. If you're up for that, then be right on the issues and look up Support Fellow Progressives, and you can get involved with other people who can help and give advice and camaraderie as well.
There you go. Awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show, Adriel.
Thank you.
Again. You could just drop in any time you want to just talk political commentary, but we're going to have to limit it to a segment, or we'll just start doing a morning show, the Adriel Hampton show. That's fine with me.
Maybe once a week.
We'll talk about that. I'm open to
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I am. I mean, we could bring different. And I mean this right
Bring
now.
people on. Yeah.
Have you come on, bring
this.
different candidates on. We could talk about strategy. I mean, this is. We hold the keys to however we want to make our media and our narrative, and we just have to grow it so that it's amplified and more powerful than mainstream. And we got a ways to go, but you know, let's do it. Let's talk about it. Adriel Hampton, everybody, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I know this has been a weird show. It's 11:45, and I'm gonna cut out a little early because I want to see what the hell's going on with YouTube, and I want to get ready for. The event coming up here, and there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff going on outside of this. Everybody, there's our businesses trying to form, the nonprofit and the for-profit. We're talking to Larry Taylor about that stuff. We got to get a bunch of websites set up. There's stuff going on in Lynn County and Benton County with the Democratic Party because we got a lot of problems to fix in Oregon with their progressive stuff. Democracy takes time. It's work. It's work when it's fucked up. Right, and we have to fix that. That's like the big deal. I see my Hangout just died on me. All sort of interesting. There we go. Technology, another problem here, because this computer is blue screening every day, right? So that's a bit of a problem. So we're growing this network. We're going through some growing pains right now, and as soon as we have all the official stuff in all the right places, we're going to be hitting you guys. For money, like everybody does. No, seriously, we're going to have a different setup, and we're going to have things looking good. Markus and Laura live and good, and Deniz, and so many people are working on it in the background. It's going to be amazing. We've got credits. Markus and Laura making credits for everybody because we really wanted to give everybody credit. Markus, did you have anything you wanted to say to anybody?
Yes, I only want to mention that next Tuesday we have another guest from Germany here, and it is Björn Kammler. He is having another channel in Germany. He's the Progressive European, or the European Progressives. That's correct. And yeah, we will talk about the coming election here in Germany, and he will present his perspective on the election in Germany, what could happen. And 1 week later, we have him also on the show again on Tuesday, and we will talk about the aftermath. And yeah, I hope you will like him. I think he's a fantastic guy, and yeah, I'm looking forward to have him on Tuesday on the show.
Yeah, thank you for arranging that. That's going to be really cool. Oh, I got Markus bouncing around. Shit, hang on. There. We'll use that, Markus. Got you on different cameras. Thank you for that. Yes. This whole day today has been just kind of discombobulated because of the Facebook and shit. And Adriel was a great. I mean, not much I needed to do there. He just talked. And that's good. I like that. I mean, I wasn't, normally we do like 20 minutes guest, just whatever. A lot of good stuff. I had a bunch of stuff to talk about, but it wasn't all that important. Climate stuff going on around the world. Violence. There's some violence happened in London and some violence that happened in Germany. Actually, like dudes with a gun in Germany. It looked like an American scene. It's very interesting. We're gonna get out the flies in here. So we're actually here I'll segue from that, a great conversation with Adriel Hampton and talking about what we needed to build our machine. I calling it a machine, we're growing a network, an organism. It's a living organism. We'll call it a machine, that's fine, technology, whatever, but it's really the process of supporting our candidates and keeping democracy alive in the progressive wing of us, right? And we can do that however we want. We don't have to follow the way the Dem Party set themselves up or the GOP set themselves up. We can use better technology. We can use different things. We're doing it right now. This network, the Adriel Hampton group, all of the groups that have been set up to support. I mean, this is history. When you think they're going to look back on this if we survive, and it'll be in history. They'll say, back then a progressive movement rose up and a whole bunch of new organizations got created to move their candidates into power so they could get rid of all the greedy assholes. It's a quote from the future. Anyway, we're going to go out with a song that came on yesterday, and I just have to play it because it cracked me up. Because it fits. And it fits in a really weird way. And we can run it. I know, actually, we can run anything we want because this is Facebook, not YouTube. I forgot about that. But this is even better. We can run it.
Oh, my God, the freedom.
I know. But I checked this. I ran it yesterday. So I can do that every day, Markus. If we have the song in time, I can actually just run it the day before and make absolutely certain. But today we're going to do something a little different. I'm going to show credits. If I can get my shit together here. I'm going to show credits as well during the song. They're not complete, and so we've been working really hard at getting everybody recognized and everybody's name on these slides. And you got to understand, when you see the names, you realize how many people are involved in this volunteer organization. We have a lot of people here that dedicate a lot of time to doing a lot of stuff, and that is the most awesome thing. That is the thing that I am the most proud of, right? I not creating a business, but the fact that not me, but that somehow people came here, showed up, and continued to do shit. I'm proud of that. I didn't make that happen. I'm just saying I'm proud of the fact that human beings showed up to do that. And you're still here, and you keep doing that. And we're trying to recognize that. So if your name's not on one of these slides, let us know so we can put it on a slide. All right. Whatever you're doing to help us out in terms of this organization, we want to make sure you're recognized. And I know there's probably nobody who's been burned out from the past that still watches the show. But if you are, let us know you're still here. We'll get your name on the slide. In truth, if I were going to put everybody's name on the slides, there'd be over 300 people that would be on slides. There are more than 300 people from the time this thing started till now that have signed up to volunteer for us and at some point did something. That's what it takes. A critical mass, right? Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Markus. Thank you, Deniz. You guys are awesome.
This is actually the 1-year anniversary of when we started the slideshow.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Really?
Holy shit.
Cool.
I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
That was our first post-primaries effort. that went up till the election, and then we went down for a little bit, and then I think it was Manic DBB came up with a name for Awake. You went online, you just went on the air at the beginning of December and said, "What should we do?" And he said, "News show where we can talk and drop F-bombs."
Did he? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of. I can remember this. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
So that'll our anniversary for that'll be December.
Guys. Let's sing together. Happy
No.
birthday.
No.
Not
I think there might be a copyright on that song.
Yeah. If you perform, there is actually a copyright on Happy Birthday. That's the truth. You can perform a cover, but you're actually supposed to pay them for it. I'm not joking. That's welcome to capitalist America.
Let's sing it backwards, maybe.
Oh God.
Okay.
German. That's German fun. Hey, let's sing it backwards.
It would probably say John Ellis is dead. You got to be old to recognize where that came from.
Yeah. Yes, you do. All right.
Yes,
We're getting out of here with this song because it came on yesterday on Slacker. Thank you, Flies. Came on Slacker, and I thought, holy shit, like we're here. This isn't so far from reality. And the words, okay, so we're not in Thunderdome. However, we do have kind of a pending apocalyptic nightmare with climate change where we will be fighting each other like savages for fuel and basic resources like water and food. And a lot of our planet will be uninhabitable. So it'll look a lot like Mad Max 3 Beyond Thunderdome, which is the song Tina Turner, We Don't Need Another Hero. And I was excited as hell because it came on. I'm like, holy shit, like it kind of fits. It fits up to the part where she says Thunderdome. And then you're like, oh, okay. But what if we just make the Earth our Thunderdome and we're battling bad guys? We really don't know who they are. Some of them wear badges. Some of them wear suits and ties, right? Some of them work in oil fields. Some of them sit in CEO offices. We don't know who they are. But we don't need another hero. We have a hero. We got Bernie. And for a while there, we couldn't get over that. Like, yeah, it's a hero. But really, we don't need one. We've learned that we are all the heroes, right? All we got to do is get off our ass and do the work, and then we can have whatever we want. We don't have to have apocalyptic, Mad Max, Tina Turner world where we're driving crazy machines looking for fuel. We could actually have a nice planet that's green with nice stuff. And then if you want to dress like Mad Max, fine. But at least you're not doing it to survive, right? That's all I'm saying. So thank you all for being here. Hopefully we'll see you on YouTube, which is where we prefer to broadcast. But thanks, Facebook world. It was nice being here. Tina. And yeah, we can run the full video, and I thought it was worth it just to see the 1980s apocalyptic looks.
Out of the ruins,
I mean, look at that hair.
out from the wreckage, can't make the same mistake this time. We are the children, the last generation. We are the ones they left behind. And I wonder when we are ever gonna change. We're living under the fear till nothing else remains. We don't need another hero. We don't need to know the way home. is coming.